Sonic Talk.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk episode, 593, recorded today on Wednesday, the 16th of October, 2019. Welcome to the Sonic Talk podcast. This is to do with music technology. We'll generally be chatting about music tech, synthesizers, software, music production, live production, all that kind of ecosystem that surrounds that. And for those of you who are regular listeners, I'm sure you might be excited to know that we're changing up the prize this week. iZotope were very kindly donated, wait for it, a full Ozone advanced copy. So you could win that if you enter the competition. There will be details probably about halfway through the show. But you'll have to, if you're watching live, you'll have to wait till then. If you're not, you could skip ahead. But you'll miss so much great stuff because we've got some good guests this week, as we always do. So let's start off with, let me see. We'll say hello to Mr. Rich Hilton. Rich, of course, on the road with Chic, where he has been for quite some time. We haven't seen you for ages. Where have you been? Or where haven't you been? Probably easier question to answer.
Well, this past weekend I was in Greece at a beautiful location. Oh, it was gorgeous. It was really nice. Nice people too, and very enthusiastic, though small, obviously, private crowd. It was great. And the week before that, it was, a couple of 150,000 of my closest friends in Rio. And we played the Rock in Rio Festival, and there was a ton of people, and it was exciting. And before that, it's been just a lot. And in a few weeks, actually at this point, I'm kind of home for a few weeks, and then we're going to resume touring with Cher in North America in mid-November and go up to about Christmas.
Yeah, excellent. Actually, since last time you were on, I saw an amazing sort of documentary about Cher and her life, and it was kind of mind-blowing, the kind of stuff that she's done and been through. It really kind of makes you think she's one of those sort of classic music business personalities that's just had a most incredible life and sort of reinvented herself repeatedly. Grammys, Oscars, the whole kind of gamut. Amazing. Absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. And over here, she's actually probably a bigger star as a TV personality and movie star than as a singer and music person. And she acknowledges that in interviews. And her show is first of all, it's very Vegas and laden with props and costumes and dancers. And it's just a gigantic production. And a lot of it is about the TV history and the career, and there is a singing with the film of Sonny doing I Got You, Babe, and stuff like that. There's a lot of different moments of her career covered, and she does have a rather extensive career. And she's just generally fun, and people love her, and they enjoy her at the show. And let me tell you, this woman sells tickets like nobody we've toured with before.
Wow. Which is good for you guys as well, I'd imagine.
Everywhere. Right? Well, yeah, that's the point for us, is to be exposed to as many people as possible. And every night it's a packed house all the way to the rafters. And
wow.
And they come around. They're not there to see us. We know that. And that's what opening band gigs are. But we bring them around every night, and it's always good.
Yeah, well, I imagine that's a hell of a bill, isn't it? Oh, yeah, Nile Rodgers support tonight. I mean, just sort of kind of, yeah, whatever. Fantastic. Well, lovely to hear that you've been enjoying the trip. And we'll also come across to Mr. David Spears of GeForce Software. Only his mother calls him David, I'm sure. Or maybe she doesn't, I don't know. But synth collector, software developer, musician, all of those things. You could never have too many keyboards. Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. There's living proof of it. So you're at Shez Spears tonight, not in the full synth cave, where you've only got the CS. Is that an 80 or a 60 there?
No, it's the 60 here.
Just the light, just the Yamaha light.
And on top, I showed you earlier, we have an ARP Omni and a Pro DGX, and both of them work. Kent did an amazing job on getting all the aftertouch back on the Pro DGX, which I absolutely adore as a synth. It's so simple and so brilliant to play.
I'm sure I saw you say something about there's a flute. Is the flute thing?
Yeah.
That Wally Badarou private life drama. It is it? It's the Grace Jones.
I don't know whether it is that, but it's that sound. It's definitely that sound. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think, in fact, I posted a video the other day, like the day I got the El Capistan Strymon thing, and it was just like right out of the box, straight into the DGX, flute sound on, little modular sequence, and that's it. Gone for hours.
I wonder if Strymon should actually maybe Strymon should start iterating pedals, so they should have the next pedal should be called Catalina. And they should have a Mojave pedal as well. Just so there's sort of parity between operating systems, just for fun. I thought that's a dirty word. No, don't mention the word Catalina to a developer, right? Right.
Well, it's a great plane. It's a great old aircraft. I had high hopes because I loved the Catalina as a plane, and then we got a call from Apple going, "You need to do some work," which is why I've been absent from everywhere for a long time, because it's been. Sometimes you just got to put your head down and get through things, and the team here were amazing. In fact, we had VSM, the update to VSM, all ready to go, and we were all excited about it. I spent months sampling everything from like the CS through to the 8 voice through to OB12 for a weird one and various other things, and I was getting really excited. And then we got the call from Apple, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, none of your stuff works.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh
well,
dear.
Actually, that's not true. It was really those two, Mtron Pro and VSM, were the two kind of real problematic ones. But again, everybody here put their nose to the grindstone, and thank you guys. Yes.
Well, this feels like an ideal point to mention that Virtual String Machine VSM is version 3. It's a free update, right? But it's worth buying if you haven't already got it, because you get a whole load of new content. I'll do the plug for you because I know how modest you are, Dave. You don't plug your own stuff. Although, you know, it seems like the small fee I can offer you.
Yeah, I didn't actually come on here purely to plug that. Although I hardly know any of these topics. But yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a free update. There's loads of stuff. I did tons of sampling, and so anyone who's just got VSM gets another library as well. We got a stereo playback engine, so I wanted to kind of resample all of the kind of stereo ensemble, string ensemble machines, so that you get that kind of super width. And then if you've got the expansion library, then there's also an add-on for that as well, which I can't remember what's in that because it's all a blur.
Right. Well, anyway, that's the sort of... There we go. There's a sort of a self-deprecating sales pitch. I like the sound of that. It's
very English, isn't it?
Yeah, very English.
We're very good at that.
Well, thanks for coming on, Dave. And let's also say hello to Mr. Yoad Nevo, who is mix engineer to the stars, as well as Waves developer. And he's at the helm of one of the most sophisticated MIDI setups, I think, in the Western Hemisphere, which... You could see all of the stuff behind you. We were talking earlier, weren't we, Yoad, that, you got the Mini there, but underneath I guess it would be your right shoulder, is the Chroma Polaris, which when we finally get our video of the studio tour we shot.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see it.
Probably
I don't know which
not.
Way to...
Yeah, you can't. It's not really.
It's there in the corner, kind of.
It sounds bloody great. In fact, I saw a Chroma Polaris in 5G, and I was like, ooh. I'm trying to think how much it was. I don't think it was exceptionally expensive, but most of the synths in 5G in Tokyo, the legendary synth store, it was the Yamaha and the Roland stuff that was good value, whereas all the kind of other imported and other brands were a lot more expensive. And I guess Chroma Polaris, that would have been, was it American? It was. Was it Rhodes Chroma, Fender? I don't know what point it was made.
It was after Fender purchased ARP.
Ah, okay.
And something like that. So it's a really sophisticated synth, and the software in it is like mind blowing for the time. You can change the sounds of the click track of the sequencer and stuff like that. We kind of random things. It's like the manual is this thick. And mine, I think most of them have problems with the membranes, the controls.
You can get them replaced, I think, can't you?
Yeah, you can. But what we did with my assistant back then, Anthony, we took it apart, and it's actually the flat cable. It's like a really kind of thin flat cable, like celluloid or something like that. And we actually trimmed it, so it's the connectors on that cable. So we actually trimmed like 0.5 centimeters out, and then we managed to squeeze it back into the connector, and it worked for a while. It allowed me enough time to get all the all the settings for it to receive sysx and control data and all that. So now I have it all controlled from elsewhere, so I don't need the controllers anymore. I mean, the knobs and stuff do work, but it's like you can't change programs on it and things like that from its own, controls.
Gosh.
But
And it's got possibly one of the sluggiest MIDI receive processor buffers in it, hasn't it? Doesn't it?
It's not that great. No.
You can't play notes and control stuff at the same time. Oh no.
I don't think you'll be able to program like a good trap hi-hat on it. I'd say.
That would be what a great measure of all of that. Anyway, let's get on to stuff, because I know there's something that Rich you wanted to talk about, because this is something that I saw you interested on Facebook. So this is the new Softube fader, Console 1 fader, which is, as you can imagine, the Console 1 was used a lot as like a control channel strip, but now you get faders, which is I think 10 faders. I'm not quite sure 10. Why? Because you usually get 9, don't you? I'd be interested to know whether they go for 9 channels or 8 channels on a master and a group. Possibly, we'll see. So yeah, the idea is it integrates with the ecosystem. It does it's automated moving faders, touch sensitive, and it looks together like quite a funky thing. Right. I know, Rich, because am I right in thinking that you only recently were a convert to the Console 1 and you were like, hey, well, this has really changed? Yeah. Is it a recent thing for you? Because it's one of those things, it's been around for a while, but they changed it up recently, or
it's
maybe
recent
a year
for
or
me,
so.
yes.
Yeah.
I had never actually used it. I'd seen it. I was curious about it. And now I think I'm in love.
How interesting.
It's really a great workflow. And yeah, I was always I can operate it from a mouse. I don't miss a control surface. I'm doing fine. No problem. But operating complicated EQs from a bunch of knobs instead of from one parameter at a time and watching them interact while you've got 2 hands on it is pretty amazing. And I just really like operating this thing. And I watched our dear friend George Reese demo this fader product yesterday, and it really is very well implemented and a lot of stuff for the money and looks rock solid. Like this thing comes with 10 touch sensitive motorized faders, Alps faders, 100 millimeter throw faders, and
why
it
10?
looks like really excellent.
Did you get a handle on why the 10? Because I'm trying to look for a high res.
I think that's what they could fit. I think that's what they could fit in the topology. I honestly believe that that's what drove it. That they had a certain topology in mind. They wanted it essentially to be in the same box or a very similar box to the Console 1 product, so they could work together well and physically lay out well.
Right. So that's okay.
So to me, I'm guessing, and I haven't asked, and I don't recall George mentioning a reason why, but I expect it's because that's what they could fit on there. If they could have fit 12, they would have put 12. He may have even addressed this, but I mean, it's I don't know, is it better than 8? It's kind of odd. It's actually a very sort of metric centric way of thinking of your session in 10s, because anybody who works in consoles generally thinks in buckets of 8 or 16 or something like that, and so
or 12.
It's almost like the difference, or 12. Yeah. So it's almost like the difference between imperial and metric in a way, in terms of the way you apply your thinking to the layout of your session. But I don't know. It's more because you got 10 fingers. I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like it's going to be an interesting. So, I mean, if you apply a decimator to that, you'd lose one fader, wouldn't you? That in the true sense of the sort of romantic sort of sense. But that's an interesting thing. So, are you thinking that this is going to be something you're going to add to your arsenal, as it were? And the other question I was going to ask, because the thing about the console stuff, I know it now controls or interfaces with UA things, but you need to kind of if you wanted to go back to sessions, you'd have to put their plug-in across all of the channels that you were using if you wanted to use all of the, that's the only thing that's kind of a little bit of a drag, right?
No, that's what I'm doing. It's not, I mean, it's 10 to 15 minutes of setting your plugins down a notch in the plugin hierarchy so that you can pop the console across the top of everything. But It's not hard to execute. Then you save it in that form and you move on. It'll take 10 minutes of your time the first time you open the session, and then you're rocking. And I mean, I was blown away by the sound of the EQ and the compression I was getting in their software. And I already like a lot of their software, and they have a bunch of extra drive options that come along with the fader product that are also interesting, and they allow you to incorporate certain of their other products into the drive circuitry, including their excellent tape emulation software. So it's all pretty cool. And what really got me, it's fun to operate, but it sounds great. I was really impressed with the way these essentially channel strips sound. And I was playing around with the SSL mostly.
I had a question for you. So do you need two, if you're using console and fader, do you need two plugins, or is there a combined version of the plugin
That I don't know. That I don't recall. Yeah, I wasn't focused so much on the software aspects, because I could just see that it worked. Right. There is additional software overlays. In fact, there's a separate software overlay for the console as compared to the one you get when you press the display button on a console one. So you have separate displays available, probably simultaneously.
That's interesting. It's interesting also that someone who's been using sort of mousing for a long time, and I guess the same goes for you, yeah, because I know, your center section is kind of where you tend to live on the console. It's MIDI control, it's mouse driven, it's all of those things. I know that the Softube stuff, there's a certain amount of overlap, shall we say, with the sort of channel strips with the stuff that Waves makes. But I mean, do you ever kind of miss having your hands on the controller, or are you so sort of fixed in the way that your workflow is that you think, I wouldn't mind a couple of faders or this or that?
Yeah, the funny thing is that I have this huge desk, and it's actually a limitation in a way, because when you have like a normal office desk, then you can put a bunch of stuff on it, like desktop versions of stuff, and and then you can reorganize it when needed, and move stuff about. But when you have a desk, I have this much space in the center section, which is where I sit. I have the BeatStep Pro, I have this M Audio keyboard, and the computer keyboard, and the Behringer PCR to control all the synths and stuff, and that's it. I can't fit anything else, and I would love to use something like that, like the Softube controller. I like the first one, and this one with the addition of the faders looks really cool. I really like the design on it, and the look, like the look and feel. For me, it reminds me of a bit of a Harrison desk, which I used to love working on. There's something about this color, this chrome brownish color, and it being metallic and all that. MCR 3, I think, or 4 it was, which I really like, and I wish I could fit it. And that brings me to another thing we talked about, which is the Hydrasynth, which I really want to get. But I don't know if I want to give up the Rev 2, which I mainly use as a. This is my main kind of keyboard here on the side. I love the touch of it, but I use it as a controller for Omnisphere, and I wouldn't be able to do that with a Hydrasynth. So I was thinking maybe to get the desktop version, but then I don't have anywhere to put it. I can't put it on the faders and stuff.
I've got an idea. Before I come to you, Dave, I've got an idea. I literally just came to me, this concept of having a desktop, and then you can put things how you want. Now, who remembers these puzzles? The slidey puzzles where you got a missing square.
Yeah.
Now, think on each of those squares is a piece of equipment, and you can just rearrange it in any format. And obviously, in the hole is where you put your drink at any one time. Obviously, you scale it up to be maybe not a square; it would be a rectangle or something. So you'd have
all wireless, obviously.
Yeah, or there's some way of the wires kind of fall through underneath, so they come up underneath like that. I don't know. Dave, I remember you went all in the box. Do I remember you having a controller at one point, like a mix controller, like was it like a Logic controller or something, or am I imagining that?
No, I think you're imagining.
I am imagining that.
Yeah. No, this looks interesting. It's probably not for me at the minute, because obviously we've got the whopping desk in the big studio, and this room is just absolute chaos. There is no room for anything. And like what Johan was saying about, you know, the desktop stuff, it's just like every inch of my desktop is covered in, well, cigarette papers and
I don't even show mine. I get to the point now when we get clients in. We get clients because I've got 3 desktops and they're all completely covered in crap and bits of cable and paper, and I'm terrible, but there's nowhere else for it to go. Because I'm I put it this way: if you're in a creative, fluid environment, you need to be able to move stuff around and go, where's this and that. I was working on that 10 minutes ago. I need to leave that there because once I finish this thing, I've got to go back to that, you know. But times that by a longer time scale, and you end up with complete mess. But yeah, I think there's probably a way around. I'm trying to make excuses for my complete messiness, but yeah, Softube. I think that it's going to be $600, so it's, you know, it's not like dirt cheap, but 10 motorized faders seems pretty reasonable. I know I couldn't figure out, Rich, whether you were saying that you thought it was a steal or whether you thought it was a bit pricey from the tone of your text, because it wasn't. I wasn't speaking to you about it. Do you think it's good value?
I think it's an amazing deal for 10 motorized touch faders that do that route all of those different ways that you can do all that different stuff with. It's very, very nice. I think it's absolutely. I mean, and next to this other product, the Console 1 product, it's just amazing interaction with the in-the-box mixing environment.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, you can check that out. Softube there. Obviously, Softube are sponsors of the show, and I'll have a little ad from them in a minute. But what was I going to press a button? Oh, I was going to actually... In fact, that's what I was going to do. How timely. They also make Monument, the synthesizer. Here we go. This is their bass synth, which is called Monument, which stereo samples from synths that have been kind of specifically processed to get kind of, well, solid lows, as it says on the way in. But there's also this additional processing that goes on in the actual plugin, which is designed specifically more for sort of processing bass sound. So you get these kind of really mix ready sounds straight out of the plugin with multiband compression, this kind of really interesting aging parameter which adds bursts of noise and various volumes of it, also the saturation, there's LFO in there, envelope following, there's a really interesting EQ and spatialization, lots of ways of basically processing bass, and I think there's a reverb in there as well, which might sound wrong but is somehow right, particularly in today's modern productions. It's fine to put reverb on bass. So do check it out. Go over to softube.com, and while you're there you can check out the Console Fader 1. Why ever not? Alright, let's see what's next. Oh yeah, here we go. This dropped yesterday, and Gaz did a review.
I'm Gaz Williams, and today we're looking at...
Oh, we're not. I think my disc has fallen asleep. Which is quite it's quite funny, really, because Gaz rang me up yesterday morning at 11 o'clock saying he'd been up all night shooting this for us, which was very kind of him. Is it going to play? Come on. Oh,
he's kind of pretty much stayed true to the original vision in others. The original vision being, of course, that they are clip launchers for Ableton Live first and foremost. That is what their raison d'etre is.
Mini Mark III.
Specifically designed for that task. And if we look on the screen here...
Yeah, I would just like... I think Gaz had been... He threw an all-nighter because yesterday the embargo finished at 4 p.m. and he just wanted to make that. I think that people like Bo Beats and Loop Pop, you know, they're always releasing stuff bang on the embargo time, and he says, you know what, I'm going to go for it, and it sent him on a journey that perhaps was longer than he'd hoped for, but much appreciated nonetheless. So these are the new launch pads, much more sensitive on the X anyway. They're much more sensitive pads. You could kind of almost stroke it. It's really interesting, actually. You get a really fluid musical experience. You've also got these standalone custom modes. I think there's 4 in the X, which allow you to create mix and match kind of control surfaces, buttons for program changes, individual CCs, switches, drum pad squares, keyboards, all of that kind of stuff. And that stays in the unit once it's powered off. So if you're running in a MIDI host mode, which might be something that we link up to later, then you can basically bring it in and have these custom control modes as well as all the live functionality. And it's a really interesting development, I think. And there's more functionality for live. I don't know if anyone's uses Launchpad. I remember when I went to visit Novation, it was must have been 2 or 3 years ago. In the foyer, they had I think I showed the picture, this silver kind of disc. It's like a silver disc to recognise sales of more than 300,000 of the Launchpad range. So fast forward 3 or 4 years, and now these, I can't imagine how many they'd be selling. Rich, have you? I mean, I don't know. You're not so much of a grid controller guy. I mean, I know it's got a valid thing, but it sort of depends. It's horses for courses, and I don't know whether or not that's something that you would maybe clip launching and stuff in live. You might find it for. Is it something that you use much? Have a need for?
Not as a performance device in my typical live workflow, but I watch a guy like Robbie, for example, and I can see why it makes a ton of sense for a guy like that. And when you're machine based in a live circumstance, that could be an incredibly, I'm sure, an incredibly productive and useful thing to have. I'm not particularly yearning for one of those kinds of products around here, though I've seen them and really admire them, particularly theirs. And the Ableton product is also very nice. And Machina, of course, is no joke. So, I don't actually, it doesn't currently live in my workflow, but then again, neither did Console 1 a month ago. So
who knows? Well, the thing that's very interesting, I think, about these, and this maybe come to you, Johan, because I know you're all about kind of being able to midify stuff. I'm surprised you haven't got more buttons and knobs that are programmed up to do kind of crazy stuff around the studio. Just, I'm sure you could, imagine 64 buttons that you could.
Yeah, I use a lot of macros. I use this program called the Keyboard Maestro. And I have a lot of stuff like setting auxiliaries 1 to 8 on any channel, and setting 10 compressors on, like one of 10 compressors on insert slot 2, and then EQs, 10 EQs on insert slot 3. So when I mix, I just go through all of that very quickly. So I do use that. I've been looking at that and also thinking about that Hydra synth again, because it's one of those things. It's one of those things that
he's got the gas bad.
Yeah, until I get it, you know that I'm gonna get it eventually. It's just a matter of whether to get the desktop. And then I was looking at this Launchpad, and I was thinking, well, the Hydra synth desktop has a kind of a pad system. Yeah. And I've never really played with chords and scales like that and it gets something different out of playing. I know that Rich will not like what I'm saying because he's a proper pianist and a keyboard player, but for us guitarists who just get by on keyboards and stuff, it's nice to have a different kind of approach to playing. So I would like to try that, but also the Launchpad really gave me, it makes me want to use it with Ableton, and to change the workflow and to do the clip based and all that workflow. I don't know, but again, it all comes down to space. Where am I going to put something like that? And that's the main thing. I'm with any bit of new gear that comes out, and there's so plenty of them recently, especially desktop and things like that.
I've got a thought for you. Yeah, I mean, basically, your faders were pretty much going to be at Unity on the Neve most of the time.
They are.
So why don't you just take the faders out and put a table on there, put a workspace in there instead?
Well, that relates more to the Softube controller, because I was actually thinking. I had that thought for a very long time, to change all the faders, to bypass the audio on the fader, to set it to so it would be at Unity, which is how I use it anyway, and then to put motorized faders, either Tascam, the 24 something, or maybe a Softube, but then I have 60 faders, so to change them all to motorized, modern kind of controller
MIDI
faders.
CC stuff.
Or Huey or whatever, something like that.
That's the SSL stuff works that way, doesn't it? There's that X desk or X thing that you can flip it between audio and. I think.
Yeah, the duality. Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. Yeah.
Okay, Dave. Grids. I'm just trying to think. I guess MPC. Have you got an MPC in your synth cave or anything that's sort of You're a drummer, for goodness sake. Surely you must have pads everywhere.
No, got Simmons stuff, old Simmons stuff. No, but I'm kind of, I don't know. Novation have got it going on as far as I'm concerned at the minute, and I've seen a couple of people using this and previous versions of Launchpad, and there's something about it that makes me think, if I had that, I might be quite good at that. Which it usually never turns out that way, but there's something about it. I tell you what, in fact, what I've asked is one of the guys from Novation to come to the studio, because he's wanted to visit it anyway, see all the old tat in there, and just see how something like this could kind of be shoehorned into the setup. Because people come into our place, it adapts to suit their project, and so it's constantly changing, although, you know, the desk stays the same, as it were, but everything seems to revolve around. Actually, it's weird, because I think I said before, most people, when they come in, they go straight for the Moog Modular and go, Moog Modular, and then 10 minutes of that, they go, it's too complicated. Can you come up with something? And then you do that, and by which time they've moved on. And they usually end up on the CSA or the Jupiter 8. So that's become the kind of area, the workflow area. And I'd like to see how something like this could fit in with all the old tap that we've got and be something, because the studios use very much on the fly, as it were. You know, people come in and then they've done the work for the album, let's say, in another studio, and they're looking to put sounds and stuff on it. So it has to be a kind of vibey thing.
Yeah.
And I think something like this could probably fit in quite well.
Well, it would probably be really useful to have a load of, note input, because some people like to input in the grid, in the grid, and that's totally fine. And some people are more fluent in that respect. I find it really alien, and I don't generally find. I might come up with a different melody in different intervals because my hands always fall in the same place on a keyboard, so that's quite good. But I can't be very fluent on it. But some people obviously are. But again, it's the custom modes. I mean, if you imagine mapping that MIDI to stuff that would be doing useful things, like you just go, can that just be the effects end for on this synth, or whatever it may be that you can just quickly grab, then that would make sense. But that involves kind of a whole bunch of MIDI routing, which you probably, I don't know whether you've got that in place.
Yeah, and then somebody's going to come in and unplug stuff and go, actually, I don't want that, I want that. And then you're going, hang on. I like the fact that this retains everything with power off, though.
Yeah, well, and you can save your patches and stuff. Rich, you look like you were itching to come in there. But I messed up. No. Okay, that's fine. No. You don't have to. So anyway, the Launchpads are out. They were announced yesterday at 4 p.m. I think they're probably on their way to the stores, if not in the stores already. I think the big one is 179 and the small one is 99. That's pounds. Other currencies obviously are available, and I don't know what they're going to be. Right, let's just have a little word from our friends at iZotope, because we've got Ozone 9 for you.
Building on a 17-year legacy in audio mastering, Ozone 9 brings balance to your mix with never-before-seen processing for low end, real-time instrument separation, and lightning-fast workflows powered by machine learning. Expect lower CPU usage and shorter startup times with Ozone 9 compared to Ozone 8. Experience fluid metering in a fully resizable environment that lets you track the most subtle details of your audio. Use more plugins at once, mix while you master without worrying about slowdowns or dropouts. And immerse yourself in a smooth, modern experience designed to keep you in your creative flow. As you can see, Ozone 9 is the fastest way to get your master off the ground. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out our other videos and head to iZotope.com to learn more about mixing and mastering, and to download your free trial of Ozone 9.
And there we go. Actually, this is great, this new video, because I don't have to say any of that stuff anymore, because he says the stuff that I usually say at the end. So I can I don't know what I can do. I can scratch my back or whatever it may be. But yes, Ozone 9. We also got a competition for this, so we're looking for so if you want to win a copy of Ozone 9 Advanced, we're looking for the hashtag AI Mastering, because it's mentioned in the video. That's one word, so A and I mastering as one word, and the hashtag Ozone 9. That's on Twitter to @Sonicstate and @iZotoping. And remember, this is Ozone 9 Advanced they're offering, which is kind of quite a considerable leap up in terms of meter it. There's all sorts of great stuff in there anyway. So AI Mastering and Ozone 9 at Sonicstate and at iZotope Inc. And we thank them for providing the prize this week. And we've got a winner from last week's competition, which was for Neutron 3. In fact, the other thing I was going to do is I'm going to try Ozone across the 2-bus on the stream, because at the moment I'm using Neutron on this, and the Ozone's got some really interesting features that I think will work really well in real time. And they came down and showed us, and there's some really low latency processing on it, so I could stick it, because this video switching system allows me to put a VST across the main output, which is why the YouTube video is a bit more hyped and a bit more kind of like FM radio. So I'm going to try that on it. But anyway, I digress. Winner from last week, who's going to be getting a copy of Neutron 3 Advanced, is a chap called Howling Terror, at Howling Terror on Twitter. And you said you tweeted the relevant hashtags, and also let's see what happens. Well, I can tell you what happens, Mr. HT or Howling Terror. You just won. So get in touch and we'll give you a copy of Neutron 3. And we thank iZotope for their provision of the prize. Very much appreciated. Right, let's have a listen to some more virtual instruments. New one from Spitfire Audio, solo violin. And I have to say, it really kind of, the articulation on this kind of made me feel quite impressed. And this is all done with that key switching, I believe. Contact instrument, solo violin, Spitfire Audio. And it really, I mean, I was very impressed with that. We occasionally do these. I mean, I think the last one we looked at, there was a cello or a viola, and we were like, wow, this sounds pretty amazing. I know, Rich, I'm going to come to you first, because you're a big fan of the Roley, which is a very expressive instrument, and you can get some of that kind of stuff. They've got some really good virtual, I mean, almost like physically modelled almost. It's modelled stuff that you can play on that. But this sounded pretty impressive. I mean, if you needed a violin to do that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess you could play some section stuff, couldn't you? That would be pretty cool.
I don't know about the section stuff, but his ability to play it expressively on a normal MIDI keyboard was stunning to me. And the samples sound great. Obviously, the guy who played them is fantastic.
Jack Liebeck, who is the violinist, apparently.
And he has his left hand on 3 different faders running 3 different control parameters within the software, and also his keyboard articulation is really, really impressively authentic sounding. And he's the man, this guy, in terms of demonstrating this thing, and it sounds great. The stuff for that Roley's selling, which are the SWAM, I believe it's called. Samples,
that's right, yeah.
Are extremely playable and a lot of fun. And I did a bunch of string work on the project I'm working on using. Actually, I didn't expect to be doing keyboards that day, and I had my iPad and the Mini, the Seaboard block with me, and I ended up doing a bunch of violin parts straight out of the iPad, running the SWAM samples. And but anyway, back to this stuff. This stuff sounds amazing, and I thought his demo was spectacular. He actually knows the notes to cross when you bow across the strings. So you go, like he actually knows which ones notes are, and he hits it the way it needs. Yeah, he makes it look easy, and that's why you know it isn't.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like the Parisi brothers, you just think, yeah, I could do that.
Right.
Like, no, you can't.
Right. Marco blows my mind. I just watched a recent Marco thing that absolutely blew my mind. He's amazing, Marco Parisi.
Fluent.
But anyway.
This is it. This is the Spitfire solo violin, 99 quid actually, which is quite reasonable. I mean, some of their larger libraries are a bit more expensive, but that seems fairly well priced. I don't know, Dave. Is it sort of? Do you find that you need to emulate, that sort of thing once in a while? Because I mean, you did your album recently, and I know a lot of that was synthy and electromechanical. But sometimes you must have been a moment where you thought, you know what, I really could do with a clarinet somewhere in the background now. Could I reach for a multi-sampled instrument and get away with it? Sometimes there's something very satisfying about being able to play something that sounds convincing when it isn't obviously a keyboard instrument, right?
Yeah. I mean, this guy, like Rich said, the sensibility. And that's the thing. You need to have an understanding of the sensibility of the instrument in order to play it authentically, which I love from years ago when I was doing all the kind of those mad MIDI file things. Recording, people like Steve Hackett and Bill Bruford and all these various people on various MIDI controllers. I loved all of that. No, I was fortunate on my album. I know a string player in Germany who is phenomenal, who has one Neumann microphone, and basically I play him a string part, let's say from Omnisphere, and then I send it to him, and he records it once, twice, 3 times. Then he picks up the viola, 4, 5, 6, and then he sends me them through all as separate stems.
Oh, nice.
And I can mix it, and the difference it makes is absolutely blinding, with the crescendos and the kind of diminuendos and just the retardandos. I mean, it's just everything about it. It just adds a whole nother layer. So then I strip the real strings out, unless I'm looking for then I strip the
you program them on the
then I remove all of his stuff
and copy it on a GM patch. Yeah,
or a VP330. That sounds just like the real thing. So I'm on an old operating system because there's a couple of bits of software I need. My software lust has been increasing probably for the last year, since Ty did that choral demo down at that do at Bristol, and I came away going, I need that piece of software, but it won't work on my El Kurdistan or whatever it is operating system. So once we've got a bulk of work out of the way, I am going to heavily invest in Spitfire audio stuff and that insanely beautiful choir that Ty demoed. And I know people who just spend a fortune with Spitfire audio, Kent being one. It's just like, have you heard that latest? Have you heard the latest? And they got a great reputation. I think Christian Henson's a very cool and interesting guy, and there's loads of people we know in common. I want to meet him, actually. In fact, I asked Ty for an introduction. But yeah, I can feel a big, hefty expense budget coming on once my OS is updated.
Danger.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what. I mean, you're in a mixed situation, Yoad. There's something missing. You think what this needs is.
Yeah, if I could only add a violin onto this hip hop track, or
well,
But no, but I mean, when I hear something that is that sounds so great and is so well executed, and the way that they manage to switch the samples so it knows when you're doing trill, so it switches to a real trill and back seamlessly. And I think that one of the ways, I'm not sure because I've only watched this teaser, but I think that one of the ways that they being able to do it so expressively is that when you change the direction of the bow, they then and there's a controller movement taking place, then they change the sample on the next one, so it seems, you know what I mean, so it doesn't sound like MIDI volume and stuff like that. So it's really clever, the stuff, and the sound quality is amazing, and the expressivity or expressiveness is really it's really something. And also, being a guitarist is something that I would like to try with my MIDI controllers. I have quite a few. I never found the right one. At the moment, it's the TG, it's the GR.
The guitar controller, right?
The MIDI controller, and maybe because the control data is quite crucial for this to work. So maybe with a couple of pedals, with a guitar or something. But it's something. I have some stuff from Spitfire, and they're really, really good. They're really good. I mean, but basically every show I do with you guys ends up costing me a lot of money.
Well, this one's only $99. Actually, I should point out that we did an interview with Christian and is it Paul? I think it's Paul. Yeah, at the launch of the BBC Symphonic Orchestra, which was a really interesting event, and And they were talking about how I'll put that out because I think it's actually released next week. So I was going to coincide it with the release and save it, and it probably needed a bit more editing than I had time for at the time. And they were talking about. They got to the point now with the BBC Symphonic Orchestra, it sounds like a really interesting library as well. That's a bit more expensive, obviously, where they were managing like 1 million samples in a single library, which is just that sort of stuff is kind of really mind blowing. But but they were saying the niche skills that they've got through just producing samples for all this time. They've got this kind of really specific set of skills for managing those sort of assets and for the way that the programmers deal with it creatively. It's absolutely fascinating. And I think, they're really on top of their game. I mean, you'd have to be to get a gig to work with the BBC orchestra, symphony orchestra. I mean, they're just not, you don't get that kind of thing coming along every once in a while. But yeah, and also worth checking out their lab stuff, which is free. And some of there's one there's a soft piano, which is really lovely.
Yeah, the Rhodesy thing. It's really nice.
It's an acoustic piano. It's a really nice one, and it's all free. The labs. But
they have like an electric piano, which I've used, I think.
Oh, do they? Okay, I don't know. I haven't downloaded all of them yet, but well
really
worth
nice.
It. Okay, well, I wanted to get this one in just before we go, because it was so lovely. Let me see if I've got the right video. So yeah, here we go. I didn't even know about this thing. This is called the Cristal Baschet, and it's a French instrument, which bizarre. I mean, essentially it's strips of glass, I guess crystal glass. I don't know what kind of glass it is. So it's like playing a wine glass, very sophisticatedly. So that you wet your fingers and they resonate, but they've got these all these sort of metal appendages and kind of horns that amplify the sound. I mean, there are strings involved in this as well. This isn't quite the truthful thing, but I'd never heard of it, and I can't believe it. It's one of those. I think it was invented in the 1950s by the Baschet family, two brothers or maybe cousins or something, or father and son. But it sounds absolutely amazing, and I think somebody should make. I'm sure somebody has. Has somebody made a sample library of that? I hadn't heard of this. I'm going to come to you first, Dave, because you're the kind of synthesis historian, even though this is a mechanical instrument. The French made the Ozone. Did you not? It's bizarre, isn't it? I mean, it's an amazing thing, amazing sounding thing. We were joking, weren't we, before the show? That it's the sort of thing that you bought. It's like, what is the Cristal Baschet incompatible with? Children, animals, any kind of loose clothing that you might snag on it, sudden movements that you might get really into it. Imagine you could just snap the thing off. There's just it's almost a completely unsuitable and impossible instrument to have around the place because, but there's another video which I found, which is it was an installation in let me see where it was. It was in the 57th Venice International Art BNL that they put it on, and the guy was getting really into it and hitting it with hammers, but mainly those great big sort of amplifiers, because they sound a bit like cymbals and gongs and stuff. It's just amazing. I know, Rich, because I know you studied musique concrète, didn't you? And this apparently was invented for musique concrète pieces in the 1950s, and I just wondered whether you perhaps had heard of it before.
I had not heard of it before, and I'd never heard it played before. Of course, it reminds me of Franklin's glass harmonica, which was, I think, the first time somebody moved glass under people's fingers to make sine waves, at least that I know of.
Right, that makes sense.
As a self-contained instrument, rather than having a table full of wine glasses, which people probably have been doing since the Roman Empire, for all I know. But amplifying it with the metal and being able to strike it in various ways in various places, as you say, it is a bit fragile. However, it sounds fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed their whole concept in this building of creating a space in which to perform on this thing, record it, and share the space with visitors, and watch their interaction with that process. It was. I really enjoyed this video, and actually shared it with some people that I care about because I thought it was cool.
Let me just put some pictures up of this. So basically, each of those spikes is a glass rod, and they're attached to. I think there's some kind of metallic ballast in there, so that there's a resonant frequency that's sort of amplified, because we know glass will resonate. And then then they've got these kind of strange sort of metal petal type structures that amplify the sound at various points across the frequency range, and it's an amazing looking thing. I just can't believe how I've not heard of it, and because it sounds so beautiful as well. I mean, it's really
until the guy started hitting those pedals. It's like, dude, don't hit the thing. It's a work of art. It needed a big notice on it. Do not touch unless I say so, and do not touch in inappropriate places.
Do not hit with hammers. Yeah.
I mean, that was insane. I was kind of like, was thinking, wow. In fact, I deliberately haven't sent this video to Chris because I know, he's one who'll go, oh, should we order one? Should we get one? Just to annoy me in terms of physical space. But I was really enjoying that whole video. And then those two guys just got on it and started hitting it. I was, whoa, no.
I don't know if you can see here. There's a really
sounded great when you hit it.
There's a little dish of water below the guy's hands, which you have to sort of dip your fingers in, because you have to keep your fingers wet at all times. And some of the articulation that people come up with, I can't imagine it's terrible for your hands. I mean, you just get, because your hands are going to be soaking wet the whole time. But there's some.
It's like when you've been in the bath.
Yeah, you've been in the bath too long. No, Mum, I've been playing my Cristal. Yeah, I know. Yeah, this sounds like this. I mean, I know you haven't got room for it in your place, but isn't it worth knocking down a wall?
No, but
and just
for this thing, I can take out some channels off the desk and have it right there. That's a must. No, it sounds interesting, but I think it's one of those things that when you sample it, it would just sound like a generic kind of drone thing. And it would have one sound, and then, okay, you do a nice pad with it, and then what? You know what I mean? So I don't know if it's even worth the...
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's a novelty thing. It sounds great as it is, and when people have the skills to play it without breaking it, it's nice, and maybe it should be left like that. But I was thinking about breaking stuff and not hitting stuff too hard. Maybe we should have in plugins, do you remember like the old pinball machines where you hit it too hard or you moved it would just freeze and
tilt,
tilt. And then you lose your So maybe we should have something like that in plugins. So if you're doing like if you play too many notes or some inversions that are not in style or something like that, it would just say, hold on, and freeze for 5 minutes. So you have to do something else, relax, and come back at it.
Come back at it. Have another go when you've thought about it a bit more. Yeah. Well, I mean, you could sort of almost do that with didn't we talk about this once before, Rich? I'm sure it was a conversation thread where the idea of software as it actually aged, i.e., as you had it the longer you have it installed on the machine, the longer, the crapper it gets, or the more degraded it gets.
The high frequency goes away. Yeah.
So it actually does kind of it degrades, but in a different way. So there is an age or a life cycle to it. Yeah, it rusts sort of in some way.
There you go, Apple. There's a tip for you.
Yeah, planned obsolescence.
Tip for Apple.
Yeah.
Well,
they
actually,
don't need to.
It's funny because you know that in Logic, if you have, sometimes you get corrupt audio files. So it tries to load it, and then it says, "What kind of file is this?" It's like, and
what do you think you're doing?
May think, and you may think it refers to the actual content of like this beautiful guitar file. What kind of file is this?
It would be even better if what they need to do is just modify the code ever so slightly so it takes a guess at what the file is. So what kind of guitar part is this would be even better. Yeah, or what kind of guitar file. Yes. I'm all for that sort of stuff, but this thing, I mean, goodness knows how much it would cost to make, and if you can. But there's another image of it here, which with this rather dubious-looking kind of Pyrex baking tray with a load of liquid in it. But there's there are some videos of people playing it, and they do get quite vigorous with it. And I'm sort of thinking, gosh, I wonder, if you're playing right at the end. I suppose you start playing right at the close, the short end, because that's where you can apply the pressure, and the length is really just so you get the length of note. Because I mean, in sort of mellotron terms, it's your 4-second rod, isn't it? Once you get to the end, the note is over. That's it.
Yeah, totally. And it's Lalique glass probably as well.
What's that?
Oh, it's a very expensive glass. No, I'm lying. It's a very expensive glass, but it's
Pilkington.
Not. I can't see this being Lalique.
Pilkington self-cleaning glass.
Yeah, we could do a British version with, what was it, Waterston's Crystal or whatever they called it.
Wexford.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if now here's a question. Now, a Waterford question. That's right. Thank you, Rich. I wonder if the type of glass makes a difference to the tone. Whether the one built in the 1950s used a sort of a different formulation of glass. And of course, when they went to the more the tempered glass that could stand up to a bit more vigorous playing, the tone went to pot. I don't know. I'm sure there's possibilities of it.
I bet it is.
Yeah,
I bet it is. Don't use toughened glass. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's pretty fragile. But yeah, I'd love to play it. I'd love to play it, particularly in that kind of environment as well.
Can you imagine if you're bad? I wonder if you're bad at playing it, like you could be bad at playing a violin, whereas it makes an equally appalling sound. Like if you don't bow a violin properly, it just sort of screeches and unpleasant harmonics. I don't know. Who knows? I'm speculating wildly. I'll probably never see one in my lifetime, but I'm glad it exists in the world.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like that's probably a good time to cease. I think we didn't get to the MIDI I/O, but it's kind of late, and I feel I've got to go and pick up a piece of furniture that was bought off eBay, so I can't stick around to talk that. We'll have that next time. But the new iConnectivity stuff, I was particularly thinking of you, Yoad, and all your necessary MIDI ports. But we'll get on to that perhaps. I'll save it for you. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and joining in. Thanks very much to all the folks in the chat room. We've got the YouTube chat room, and we've also got our friends in the IRC chat room. Do come back. We're here every week, or most weeks, Wednesday, 4 p.m. UK time, where we'll get together and have a chat about all things to do with music technology. And I just want to say again, if you want to enter the competition to win Ozone 9 Advanced, I'm looking for the hashtag AI Mastering. That's just the letter A and the letter I and mastering all stuck together in one word. The hashtag Ozone 9 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And you enter that by putting those words into a tweet, and that's all. That's the way to do it. We'll pick a winner next time. But Dave, thanks for joining us, and
thank you.
And thanks for letting me plug VSM version 3, which you can get from GeForceSoftware.com, folks. Do check it out. And I hope you have a lovely week. We hope to see you again as soon as we can, because it's been a long time.
Yeah. No, things are getting a little bit more sane. That's how English is that. Yeah. Just quickly, was that a Polaris that you've got?
A Chroma Polaris.
Or the Chroma.
The Chroma Polaris.
Yeah. Do you know, weirdly enough, here's a Sonic Talk related thing. I was going through a load of old magazines for a little bit of research, and I found a really old copy of Music Technology magazine where Mark Tinley talks about the Polaris.
The Polaris is the same. Basically, it's the same thing, but times 2. So it has 2 engines. Of the Chroma Polaris is the single engine, 8 voice. The Polaris is 2 of those. Basically, it's like the Prophet 5 and the Prophet 10. It's the same thing.
Okay, I did not know that.
Thank
is
you.
it a dual manual?
No.
Has it got 2 keyboards? I didn't know there was a difference. I thought there was just one.
No, it's just 2 engines.
Huh. Well, there you go. I learned something new today. Well, thank you, Dave, for joining us, and also thank you, Yoad, for coming on and joining us as well. I promise we'll get your studio tour up soon, because we keep referring to it in the podcast, and yet it's not available online. But I am working on it. Don't worry. And I hope you've got a fruitful week ahead of you. And
I'm going to practice my
practice your violin. Start taking faders out and making space for a Baschet, which I spelt Blaschet, and I kept every time I was searching for a Cristal Baschet, and it was like all I got were images of Kate Blanchett, and it's like, what on earth's going on? That's terrible SEO. But then I'd realise I'd spelt it wrong. But there you go. That's the substitution. And of course, Mr. Rich Hilton, thank you very much for joining us, and I'm glad you get some time at home and time to chill and get back into your favourite sock drawer and all of those things that you've been missing, I'm sure.
Thank you, Nick. Enjoyed the show as always, and love talking to you guys.
So that's it again for Sonic Talk number 593. We'll see you all again next time. That's it for this time. Goodbye now. Take care. See you later.